Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is Jonas Reporters for the 18th of April. Look at the continuation we still have going here. So we had the slight dip of the 50% line as well as 38, 23. But for us, it was pretty simple. Once we got above the 38, then we were long that setup. And then, of course, above 50, it's a home run. We just keep going with it. So we're continuing to build. Almost have a positive shakeout from a daily standpoint. So that's critical. And now we can also see that we have rising brown. So definitely going to have to be keeping track of this one because we had the rise started before the 50%. So if a fade below happens, then I would expect that we're going to get a significant retrace. But for now, the propensity and the likelihood of continuation move towards the highs definitely in play. And we were looking at this little cone triangle that was developing, and depends on where you place it, depends on whether or not that's the start of the breakout, which is exactly what that would be typically considered. The only issue with these kinds of ascending triangle setups, well, it's not even an ascending triangle, it's just a cone because you don't have a flat top here, but what happens is they break out a little bit to the top and then they kind of just do this little rollover thing. So it's an interesting one to see at this particular time. You can see the power of the NASDAQ over the ES or the S&P. Positive shakeout, which gotta like that from a long standpoint. And the euro maintaining its elevated area. Nothing new to report with that one. Treasury's still way out of control comparative to where they should be given the rate increases and the projection of where that is. So that's just suggesting some instability, and or what you're hearing is a lot of people moving their money out of the market and going into safety. For what reason? Who knows? Because there is no real value in anything but equities at this particular point because you don't have a return. So you're still forced to be in equities at this particular point. Oil at the elevated side of the range. I think it was Gartman who said he was going to be shorting oil, so that means it could explode to record highs. Just throwing that in there for the fun of it. No criticism of anyone. It just he's had a difficult track record. Everything seems to go exactly the opposite of what he says it's going to do, which most likely means he's trading the opposite of what he says. That's a whole different story. Gold, again, back in favor as well and going to continue. It's always an interesting thing because you can see there's been massive accumulation of physical gold by central banks as well as central governments. Interestingly enough, I think it is JP Morgan has the largest silver position ever. So when they're doing that, what is the expectation? That's always worth noting. And here from a 5K standpoint, day started, we had the little softness shakeout, we turned back into the buy, and this was a continuation off the buy that we had from right back over here, which was, we go ahead and take a look at the close of that, was 26.83. And that lasted all the way until the red bar of 27.06. So it was a nice run. There was just nothing to do with this. It was all positive shakeout. There was plenty of opportunities. Every increase in the histogram after the little dips, perfect opportunity to re-enter, even though you were at highs almost every single time. This was the most muck that we had throughout all of it. And even with that, you still would have been able to capture a few points on a very big day. That's the thing. It's like within this broader move, you can capture the big points or do little teeny swing trades. We ended up with a fairly decent DOC spread that started right about this level, continued to expand itself right at the base of it, but everything had reset by that point. And interestingly enough, we started to get the rising gold of the 50%, which calls for a return back to the 50%. So even though there was a dip, that became a buying opportunity to do what? Head right back up to the highs as suggested by that rising gold. We saw it back over here, but it was already above the 50%, already heading to the highs, and all it did was continue to make new highs. So just like to point those things out so that they're noted and clear. And Oh, but this actually reflects an alteration in the program. So this will not look like your DO paint bar or any of the others, because this is part of the adjustment program that I've been working on. So yeah, a little bit different view perhaps than you might be used to seeing. I forgot to mention that I didn't realize I still had the test on here. But yeah, in fact I do. And so it's reflecting some of the changes. And even within this setup, I believe there will be a little bit of changes. This will probably end up converting back to full green. This one will actually be red from sooner. So little stuff like that. All good. Getting closer and closer every day to maximizing. This is always the trade-off between big point moves and or taking shorts early, because some of these are still. We ended up with orange. Plus 13.5, so clearly you could short those. You're not going to take much heat because you're already at the highs, and it didn't make any really new highs. But you did make a full retrace, almost to 50%. So this is the balancing act whenever dealing with shorter time frames. Do I give you the signal, or do I completely ignore it to go for the broader overall pull? I like to give you guys the options, and so usually I go with a little bit tighter signal configuration within the broader trend. That was the whole point of the ABM and even the Morganacci lines right here rising, because literally even utilizing one of those as a stop becomes a very effective approach to trend in general. And that's the beauty of this. And this can be even adjusted, because even the shorter the time period, the inputs on the fib level. So for instance, if you go to fib level retrace format, you can go to the inputs and you can select the number of bars that you want to go back, as well as the lines that you want to show. 0 will take any and all of these lines off, which would be no point in having the indicator on. But if you like only the 50%, or maybe just 76 and 38, or just the 23, I mean, any of them. That's the beauty and the flexibility of it. As always, though, continue to look for me on the Skype chat. I keep posting pictures as relevant, but I'm going to be programming pretty heavy here to get some of this put together. I've also completed, I believe, GAM function, and let's see if we see GAM in here. Yeah, there we go. MBI also. So that'll be nice to have those in place. Right now I have them as blue candle, because I'm doing a little bit of a refinement on it, but pretty soon that will be done as well, and it'll just coincide with an updated, well, you'll see it as the DOCon paint, most likely program, until I just turn it into the MBI paint bar, which will be the completed setup of all of this, and we'll revise, showing just the single white candles, and then probably the yellow GAM for those other occasions where that tends to pop up. So, all good stuff. As always, trade well. We'll talk to you later.